Well, good morning and welcome to City Talk. It's a weekly radio program, it's a podcast, it's a TV program where the City of Waco is able to provide information to our viewers and listeners about what's going on, great things happening in the greater Waco area. Joining me today is Wes Allison, who is the president and CEO of the Heart of Texas Fair Association, Extraco Events Center, all those kind of titles and things like that. And we're glad that you're here because we're going to talk about the new base. And see if I get this right, the business, arts, sports, and entertainment venue that has been built with no tax money, basically, from the city citizens having to pay for it.
That's right.
Talk about the base, a little bit of history maybe about how the whole thing was voted on and decided and everything else, and then we'll talk about the progress and where we're getting ready to open up.
Of course, yeah, exciting. So always exciting. I appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you, Larry, and visit. And so, yeah, you really have to go back to 2014 and a sidewalk. That's what started the base, ultimately. So city or county and school swapped some land around, trying to do some things for us, and the fair was involved in trying to get a practice field over to make an arena and different things like that. And you know, city ordinance says we have to build sidewalks. Well, none of us thinking through that really thought through about sidewalks when we built new stuff. And so we then all sit down in up in the here in the city hall, and you know, up in the city manager's office. I guess that was I think that was Larry at the time.
Yeah,
maybe Larry was still here, and or Dale. It may have been Dale at that time. I don't remember. Anyway, we sat down and somebody said, "Well, hey, what are we gonna? You know, we might not want Paul Tyson anymore. The school did, or maybe we want to build something new." And so then it was kind of like, well, let's get the ball rolling. Let's talk about the whole block. Let's talk about the whole space and really talk about how we could get there. And so ultimately from 2014, 2015, early 2015 through the election in 2017, in May of 2017, so, you know, almost 4 years ago now, when the election happened, we met every Wednesday. And there was the city manager, the mayor, the county judge, the county administrator, our chairman of the board, myself, and other people, the superintendent, and you know, just we met every week and we said, hey, how can we make this happen? And so we'd have conversations and we'd all go back to our people and we'd talk about it. And then we'd come back together, and so it was a great time and a great way to show how Waco really communicates and cooperates between the entities. And so from that, then the venue tax happened. And thank you to the citizens again for letting that happen. And then the first phase of that was then to build the base. And the base ultimately is, is a multi-purpose, 80,000 square foot exhibition center, that we can subdivide into many different spaces and different sizes. We can seat 3,500 roughly for a banquet. We can make it smaller than that. We can put 6 basketball courts in it. We can put 12 volleyball courts in it. And ultimately, that's, kind of what the first phase was, that kind of splash event that would help us as we fund it with venue tax dollars coming from hotels and motels and rental cars. It gave us a chance to do that.
And that's so amazing because part of the identification process that you did, it was coming out that the need for a facility that would allow us, the Central Texas area, the heart of Waco, the heart of Texas, to be a venue for more than what you had already proven to be successful in your equestrian and some of the other events. Talk about that, because sporting events, it was identified very early on, the fact that Texas needs to have something centrally located where Waco is, and to draw and to be able to and not have to have these different competitions spread all over Waco, the county and whatever, to be able to host it in one location.
Yeah, that was interesting because your granddaughter, my youngest child, played volleyball together at Woodway Family Center, and so from that, my kids played a lot of volleyball, and so we went and we saw that, and so we knew that there was a need there for sports, and ultimately when you have great baseball complexes we have here, and then how do we do indoor sports? What do we have to offer them? And we didn't really have that, as you see in Round Rock and in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and Austin and on into those other locations. So we really tried to look at that and say, hey, can we do this? Can we build a facility that ultimately will allow us, working with the Sports Commission, to really bring sports to Waco more than we already were, with the great things like Tri-Waco and all those kind of things happening. Then it was really a focus on indoor. But we needed a facility ultimately that we could have trade shows in, or we could have equipment shows in, or we could have those things that complemented what was happening and is still happening at the convention center, how do we complement that? And that was a big deal for us, is let's build something that's complementary, not competitive. And so that's what we did. We tried to look at it that way and what it would offer. And so, the sports deal was just the fastest growing sports in the nation is girls volleyball, basically junior high and down. And so it's amazing. And boys are, playing more volleyball, and we're seeing the boys side of that grow. And so that's really where we tried to focus: basketball, volleyball, table tennis, ping pong for you and I, whatever it is. Let's identify those sports. Gymnastics, yes, cheerleading. I mean, there's so many things that we can do with a facility like this that we can the possibility is endless on the sports side. So.
It is, and that's what's so exciting. The fact that our hotel occupancy has always been, since all the tourism has been exploding, and now that COVID is getting over, it's starting to build back up. It shows that element itself, people wanting to come and visit all the shops and stores, and obviously the Magnolia impact is still happening, and that excitement is going on. What Chip and Joanna are doing, we can't be more thankful for that.
Exactly.
But along with that, as the hotel inventory, number of rooms, is being increased, we want to keep them busy all the time. And what you're talking about, this facility is going to attract and bring those additional outside dollars coming into it.
Right.
And that's why it's being paid with outside dollars. Talk a little bit more in detail, make sure our listeners and viewers know when you talk about the venue tax, what that is.
So this project, the entire project, the part that the county's doing, the part that the city's doing, the part that the school is doing, is all funded by venue dollars. So venue dollars are generated at 2% hotel motel occupancy across the whole entire county. And then it's a 5% rental car tax. So ultimately what you're saying is that those people coming from out of town to go to Magnolia or go to a horse show at our facility or come to an event at the convention center, they're helping to fund this. So it doesn't take money out of us taxpayers' pockets. The ad valorem taxes didn't go up to fund this. And so ultimately it's our job now to make sure we increase heads and beds. And so how can we help fund our own self? So it becomes that self-funding project that over time, as we work through the phases and we grow, then it just continues to see where we go from there. And so, I think although we were shut down from kind of this March till June, we got to start horse shows back up. It was really for us a time as we looked at going into the fair last year in 2020, that we knew we wouldn't have a full fair, but we knew we wanted to stay true to our mission, which was livestock show and rodeo. And we had there was that about 20 days of livestock shows that ultimately we had an impact in Waco by bringing folks in that were coming and doing livestock events like showing cattle or showing pigs or lambs or whatever it was. Well, that ultimately helped us help ourselves. And that's what our job is, I think. And that's the best way to explain that to folks is when somebody comes and stays in a hotel, 2% of that then goes in to fund the projects at the venue. And it's a 40-year tax. So when we talked about this a lot, one of the things I told everybody when we started talking about this was, we're not making 4-year decisions. We're making 40-year decisions. What are the 40-year decisions well beyond us that are sitting in this room that are going to impact Waco and make a difference? And so that's what we really looked at.
As you just described that, there's obviously an issue because of COVID. Hotel and motels were not occupied. A lot of layoffs in the hotel industry and things, and as in so many industries. So that revenue's not been coming in. Give our citizens an update of how the funding is coming in, because obviously you can't spend it until you can bond it and whatever.
Sure.
But I think everything's wanted to be kind of paid as it goes. And this particular, the base that we're talking about premiering here right away in the first week or two of April.
Right.
We'll talk more about that in a minute. Talk about how the funding coming in has, even though it's been lower than expected, we're still okay on the base for sure.
Of course, we're okay on paying that debt. And so ultimately, the county in 2018, so almost a year after the tax passed, they sold the bonds, and they sold the bonds at $34 million, and that pays for what's going to be about a $30 million building ultimately when it's all said and done. And then there's some other money there that goes to the city and goes to the school. And the good thing is we spent a year collecting that tax well before we ever got to 2020. And so there's the good thing is Judge Felton, the rest of the commissioners have done a wonderful job of protecting that money and following the directive of their bond counsel and being able to continue to put that money aside and manage it. And so yes, even though we're down, what is roughly 40% of what we were in 2019, we're still seeing that we've got plenty of money in the bank. It's going to pay for itself. It's not something that the county will come to the citizens and say, hey, we need you to step up here now. That's not how this kind of funds work. It's not like we're going to go back and have to do another bond election or something like that. And so ultimately, as we see this turnaround and as we see moving forward, because we have to believe Waco is in a great place with Chip and Joanna and being able to just when the doors open and they're open now, it's going to explode. And we've seen that. I mean, we hosted a barrel race last week that normally we have about 400 stalls. We had 830. Ran over 2,200 barrel racing runs in 4 days. It's just everybody wants to get out and everybody wants to go. And so we know that we're having an impact. And so we know that as we see going into the summertime and as Magnolia opens back up and other venues open back up, then we'll see that increase in growth again. And, ultimately that venue dollar had been, or hotel motel receipts had been growing at, better than 10%. Let's put it that way, conservatively, better than 10%. So we would expect a rebound, really, in my opinion, by 2022, we'll be fully back to where we were and moving forward.
I think you're right, because people are so used to being confined there, want to get out and go places, do things and whatever else, and then putting heads in beds is what we're all about. And like you're saying, that's the whole success. And I will talk about the other phases of this project a little bit later on, but how do you see, is that slowing the progress or the design or anything? Or is that being kind of held back just a little based on the lack of income coming in at the speed it is, or not?
So obviously with not having income for this year, or what we anticipated then ultimately it pushes back kind of when those timelines happen, when those dates are that we're going to say, okay, we're not going to now the city and the school has started on their phase, which is kind of the second phase in this project, with the replacement of Paul Tyson and new softball and baseball fields. They actually started last Monday, and so they're moving forward. The equine part, the additional equine facilities won't actually happen. Probably what we thought would be maybe 2 years, maybe now 4 or 5 years. Just again, because we've got to replenish the money, we've got to put more money back in the kitty, and so because of what we've lost this year. So yeah, that's the way. That's okay. The good things, 40-year decisions, always 40 years. Let's think about it that way versus 4 or 5 years.
Well, and I think you're so correct, because it's already proving after COVID's happening and everything, people are coming out, people are happening. Your equine events and things, and we'll talk a little bit later on about the future of the fair coming up in October. But it's going to happen. Now you got 80,000 square feet in this one particular building.
Right.
That did take up a little bit of the parking area. Let's just kind of get a little specific. Is the parking situation going to be a problem, or you've handled that as well?
We've handled that as well. So we got about a new additional 260 actual parking spots where this goes. So for those that are familiar with the Extraco Events Center, then we're on Bosque. This building faces Bosque.
Beautiful.
It's a beautiful building. And so it took up what we call these parking lots. So for those of you who've come to the fair for years, it's that main big parking lot there on Bosque. And so we took about half that parking lot roughly, or a little more, to build this building, but we did get hard surface parking. And so one of the things that in this process of working with the city and the county and the school was, hey, let's build joint parking. And so ultimately, back where the old Lake Air driving range was down Lake Air, that will become a joint parking lot. And so we can share that for softball and baseball and football events or soccer events, or when we have fair time, we'll be able to use it. And so we try to be really efficient with the space we had and be able to do that. So I think, it's a great opportunity just to kind of work together, but it moves parking around, but ultimately I think when we're all said and done, really looking at actual parking spaces will be more than what we had before the construction started happening.
So you're talking about the driving range. Obviously, that's a brand new piece of land that had not been used. Right. All right, when Paul Tyson is gone, is that going to be parking, or what is that going to be?
No, that will actually be where our new equine facility will be.
Okay.
And so we'll build a new building there and some new stalls. So basically it will take us from what is basically 3 arenas, including the Coliseum, to 4 arenas, including the Coliseum, and about 1,000 horse stalls. We're at about 650 right now today. We'll go to 1,000 permanent horse stalls. So it gives us a chance to really, again, kind of economies to scale, if you will, with our staff of we're going to be working base events, we're going to be working Coliseum, show pavilion events, and then we'll have this new equine livestock facility that will allow us a third revenue source or a way that, most people don't realize that we're not part of the county government. We're not part of the county, budget each year. We are just like all the business owners out there. We have to make it work on our own. And so we do that as a nonprofit that gives $250,000 away in scholarships a year. And so we're very proud of what we give back in economic impact, as well as scholarships to.
Well, your passion and your I guess your motivation and yes. I'm trying to grab the word that you actually do is farm and ranch for young people, the scholarships that you're talking about, and with your expansion of the Equine Center to the new one, that's a proven deal that just like you said a minute ago, the last week you had 830 or whatever stalls compared to 400. I mean, that shows you've got the people are coming.
Yes.
You build it, they will come.
Yes, yes.
If you just joined us, we're visiting with Wes Allison, who is the president and CEO of the Heart of Texas Fair Association, Extraco Events Center, and all the things that you want to remember out there on the whole area of Lake Air, Bosque, and Cobb's, all the way over the Waco High area. A big piece of property that is now kind of being divvied up in different ways. Yes. Some major changes. You indicated the fact that Paul Tyson is obviously being taken down and being readied for you guys that eventually. And then what is the Waco ISD is going to build some baseball fields now? And what are they getting ready to do? So
at the corner of Trice and 44th Street, which is be on the back side of the Coliseum and over there toward the Waco High side, they're going to build right across from where the city recycling facility is, and the flag football field is right across from there on our side of the property. Mm-hmm. They're going to build a softball and baseball fields there for Waco High. Over on their practice field, which is just on the opposite corner, will be the new Paul Tyson facility that turf field, soccer, bleachers and and all that kind of stuff. And they're actually started, and we'll finish that in September. So they'll actually be ready for school to start, with a brand new set of facilities and all those kind of things. And, if you go back history, and we've been through this a couple of times, Larry, back, when we talked about, really when I first came here, we talked about the history of the fair and all of that. But the history of that property of being Richfield Air Base in World War I and World War II, well, that's really where base came from. In our
Air Base.
It's Air Base, and so that's really where it came from, is how we kind of got to that acronym. We brought a group of folks from across the community together and said, hey, give us some feedback, and what does the name need to be, and what does it need to represent? And so there's a whole history there. Yeah. And base is something strong and something we build our foundation. It's the foundation of what we do. So we really thought that was really neat to tie all that in together, and you'll see some of that throughout the building. As it kind of comes together and we finish some of the decorating things that need to happen over the next, probably 6 to 8 months. It'll take us, we're going to do a whole history, kind of a timeline of everything that happened on that facility and use that so when folks come into the building, they understand why it's the base. Yeah, and so we really believe that we needed to build a facility that could stand on its own, that folks could, my events at the base at the Extraco Events Center or just the base, and it is, that kind of stuff. And so we're super excited to just see what we can do, and I really think it helps us grow up.
Absolutely.
We're no longer a fairgrounds. We are truly an event center,
yep.
And we can host pretty much any event you want to do, from a equine or livestock event to a concert to WWE to a big sports event, with that facility, the fact that Baylor used to play basketball in the Coliseum, and we can put 6 volleyball courts in there, and that's 18 volleyball courts we could have out there at one time. And so we're excited. We're just it's so fun to breathe that new life into the fair.
And it is. It's so varied, and we've got such great facilities now. The McLean Stadium, and we got all those different great, beautiful venues. And the base is to me a really exciting thing. So, one question that I think a lot of people have on their mind, maybe want to know: what's the future of the Lake Air Little League fields?
So that's the city side. So that's what the city's doing. And so as we kind of work through this process, then the next step for the city then would be there was a portion of money carved out for Lake Air Little League, and so they're going to get new facilities. Now, again, timing's everything, and where we're at kind of in this process of trying to figure out what it looks like, we don't know yet. And so that's, really for Bradley and the council to lead folks through and how that happens, and as they kind of, again, we have to work through everything in the timeline.
Sure. Now, you mentioned different phases. Waco ISD is kind of in the phase 2. Do you already know what phase 3 or 4 is, or is that something to be kind of worked out with those different entities?
Still working on those different entities, again, based on what the rebound effect is of our hotel motel revenues, because with COVID, again, we're just kind of at that place where we need to think about rebounding and kind of where we go, and then with the financial, and they've basically swapped the land, the city, the county, the school, and it gave the school the opportunity, the funds to go ahead and move on with their phase 2, and certainly the city would be next, I think, in line of working on Lake Air and Little League and those kind of things, and then we'll kind of that's never ending. I think that's the good thing is there's 40 years of money here, so let's continue to look and grow. So once we get past our new equine livestock handling and events facilities, then the next step is to go, okay, what do we need next, and what does this look like, and do we pave some more parking lots, we make it again, is there a place for other park amenities? Is there a place for us to do some you see a lot of these new low impact kind of American Ninja Warrior facility. Can we put some of that on? Can we work with people to be able to do some of those kind of things? And so I think there's going to be a wonderful opportunity to not only be a community facility to serve our community, but ultimately to do what the facility is really meant to be, and that's bring people into our community and let them see what a great place Waco is.
Let's drill in a little bit further into the base.
Okay.
You talk about business, and you're talking about trade shows and things like that. Then art. What is envisioned when you say art? That's A of base. Have you talked with various people? I know our art community locally is just extremely active and good, and they want to do a lot of things.
And I think you got to look at what is all encompassed in art. I mean, it's obviously huge, and whether it's musical or painting or visual arts or whatever it is, or even I think as you look at dance and those kind of things that we can do in there, then I think there's a wide array of opportunities. And as we kind of progress through opening the building, then we're going to find those key leaders. Fiona Bonds comes to mind, obviously, and her great, wonderful leadership in our art community in order to kind of lead us down that path. I envision this thing, kind of great vision down the road, pie in the sky, is that we would have, just like down on the river, and by the suspension bridge where we represent history there with the cattle crossing and those kind of things and those bronze statues. Well, what can we do out there? How can we showcase local artists in that on those grounds to again enhance the beauty of the grounds and enhance the beauty of the facility, but also give our opportunity to do that. And so I think when we talk about dance competitions, we talk about art competitions, we talk about all those kind of things that ultimately we can put in the building that doesn't take away from us doing a banquet or doesn't take away from us doing a meeting. We can pretty much house you from, again, about 10 people to 3,500 people in the facility. So I think there's a great opportunity there to really showcase.
And at the same time, it keeps the convention center and other venues available for things, so they're not booked out. So many times the convention center gets booked, and that makes it so something else can't get here, and they have to maybe look for elsewhere.
And I think that's really the complementary side of what we do with the convention center as well, is maybe there's things that fit us better, and we've got a great relationship, always have had a great relationship with the convention center and their leadership, and being able to go, hey, y'all do this one, we'll do this one a little bit, or it fits out there better and it fits here. And so I think that's just what we have to do in order to make it work. And so as we increase that inventory of square footage, then we increase that opportunity to make an impact on McLennan County.
The S letter in base, we've already mentioned about sports, but let's get specific about sports. Before we went on the air, you verified the fact that we will have basketball floors and things. Talk about the amenities that you will have to bring that you all maybe will have or already have and be storing in the general exhibits building, I think it is you said. all the things they're going to have to be able to be flexible to be able to move in thousands of chairs if you need to,
Yes.
tables for banquets. Talk about the sports part of this as far as the basketball nets, the floors, any of those kind of things to make it a first-class place.
So we really, as we did a feasibility study, kind of in the beginning of this, in I guess late 15 and 16, it was really looking at where is our niche as a sports facility, and where can we be from a standpoint of a very mobile sports facility, if you will. And we know that focus is primarily junior high and down, which is where we see the greatest impact of people and kids and families coming and playing and doing whatever that sport is. And so we really tried to focus on what we could go and purchase with our FF&E money as far as those things that would help us. And so sports court is the thing that many of us will know. NCAA Final Four for volleyball is played on sports court. There's a number of events, basketball related, or it's very multi-purpose as far as flooring. And so we've purchased basically 44,000 square feet of it, which is enough to do the 6 basketball courts, the 12 volleyball courts, whatever it is from that standpoint. And then we went out and said, okay, what's the best systems from a standpoint of backboards and those kind of things that we can afford to put in this deal. And so we really tried to make it twofold. One, something that we can have a quick turnaround, but something that's going to last and be able to be used and ultimately allow us to be competitive in the sports market. And I think that's so critical is what we do. And so that we've really focused on that. So that's the sports equipment, if you will, basketball for 6 basketball courts, and volleyball equipment and flooring and basketball and volleyball flooring for either 6 or 12 courts. And so the other neat thing is we know that, because they'll do it here in March Madness, is we can rent hardwoods when we want to have a showcase event, of some kind, a recruiting event. We want to go out and really bring that into Waco. And I think about things like Starburst Golf Tournament and how it grew. And so how do we do these things over here? We can go rent a hardwood. They rented one and put it in the middle of NRG Stadium. They'll rent one, I assume, and put it in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Field. And so there's a lot of things in the sports world today you can be very mobile with, and you don't have to own it in order to produce the event.
And obviously bleachers and things like that you'll be able to bring in out and out too. Mm-hmm. We got a couple of minutes left. I want to make sure we get to touch on the Heart of Texas Fair. Yeah. A big event always in October. What do you think the future is going to look like now? Because we're getting ready. We're kind of getting close to herd immunity that we talked about for so long through COVID. Talk to us about the fair coming up this year.
Well, last year might have been a blessing in some ways because it allowed us to rethink the fair and really rethink how we were managing the fair and what we were doing. And now we have a great opportunity to open the fair with a brand new building. And I think the base just complements what we can do. And so we really are focused on family-friendly events. And I think for us, it's about safety, it's about comfort, it's about cleanliness, it's all those kind of things, and really looking at what we can do there. And so I think the fair, for us today, we are planning for a full fair. Carnival rides, the full, every corn dog or fried whatever you want to eat, it'll be there this year. And so full rodeo. And we'll look for that, and then I think the base you'll see a little bit more of the ag education side. We are the kind of window, if you will, to why your milk doesn't just come from HEB. It comes from a cow, and so we want to be that educational piece that allows us to do that. And so, that's where we're at, and ultimately we want people to come out and enjoy and have a great time. And there's great entertainment, whether it's attractions or mutton busting or the entertainment that we put on the stage. We really believe it's going to be a great event. So.
Fantastic. And the first event's coming up here the first week of April.
Yes.
And we can't be more excited. Wes Allison, who is the president and CEO of the Heart of Texas Fair Association, Extraco Events Center, all the things out there at the fairground area, has been our guest on City Talk. Wes, great information. I can tell you just passionate about this, as it always takes for something to be successful. We know it's not costing the citizens anything.
Right.
They get the benefit from it when they come out to the Heart of Texas Fair and Rodeo and any other event. The equestrian event, I drive by Lake Erie all the time, and more the trailers are there and the horses are there, and it's just amazing to see those people who now I know don't necessarily live in Waco.
Yeah, about 95% of the folks that use that one do not live in Waco.
They're bringing in their tax dollars, and we're benefiting from that and getting a lot of things. Thank you so much for, first of all, being with us this morning, and thanks for everything you do.
Well, thank you, Larry. Appreciate the opportunity.
And I want to thank all of you all for viewing and watching, and hope you'll join us again next week for more information about the City of Waco here on City Talk. This program is produced by the Municipal Information Department of the City of Waco and is provided as a public service by this station.